I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents. Buenos dias. We'll meet the first Hispanic bishop in Brooklyn.
It's not just the Hispanic presence anymore. We also have to think of other populations, other immigrations that have come here.
We'll take you to a church that's educating children one step at a time.
We learn how to be a group. We learn how to work together.
And education is what it's all about as we sit down with Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano.
We are giving birth to 7 academies this year from last year with some of the most wonderful, competent, generous lay leaders who are directors that you ever want to meet.
Well, good evening and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Today begins Hispanic Heritage Month here in the U.S. And to mark this, our Natalia Ortiz kicks off a 5-part series on Hispanics and their faith.
Her first story is the profile of a man who is truly a pioneer, retired Auxiliary Bishop Rene Valero. He's made a difference and made history in a time that was filled with tension as well as excitement.
For 53 years, Bishop Rene Valero has witnessed the expansion of the Hispanic community within the diocese, and his journey as a priest enabled him to serve as a pioneer for the Hispanic movement in these New York City boroughs. He didn't always belong to this diocese, however, his ties to Brooklyn and Queens began early on.
I was born in Manhattan and really raised there for the first 16 years of my life. We then moved to Forest Hills in Queens, and so that's how I came into the Diocese of Brooklyn. That would have been back in 1946.
Though he's an American by birth, his Venezuelan-born parents were intent on keeping their heritage alive, a great effort, especially because when they arrived to New York, the Hispanic population was almost non-existent. That is why Valero's parents helped establish the first Spanish-language mass in Manhattan. And so he grew up bilingual and bicultural, not only inheriting his parents' pioneering spirit, but their devotion to the faith as well.
I started my priesthood formation in Girard, a place called Girard, Pennsylvania, close to Erie. And this was a prep seminary, in other words, a high school for young men interested in studying for the priesthood.
As a priest, his efforts, like his parents, included nurturing the Hispanic Catholic community. The large Hispanic migration of the 60s and 70s created a need for sufficient Hispanic diocesan representation.
There was tension there because many of the Spanish masses were still being held in the basement, even though perhaps their mass number was much larger than the equivalent English mass upstairs.
Bishop Francis McGovero responded to the vociferous parishioners by assigning a Hispanic priest to take over for Monsignor John O'Brien as director of the Hispanic Apostolate. The new appointee, Father Rene Valero.
Now also the American priests felt hurt because they had done this on their own. They had learned Spanish. They had worked with the Spanish people.
That's when the work Father Valero is most known for began. He stepped in to mediate, eventually uniting the two groups.
If the parish did have some sort of a problem between the Hispanic and the English-speaking, I would really, in the homily or in some part of the celebration of confirmation, I would bring that up.
He continued as director of the Hispanic Apostolate for 5 years, leaving the mission to now Bishop Octavio Cisneros. And in 1980, he again broke ground as the first Hispanic auxiliary bishop in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
I was very grateful to the Lord for that because that was the beginning of a real creation of a Hispanic apostolate.
Now retired, Bishop Valero continues his work with the Hispanic community, but in a less involved manner. He leaves most of that work to successor Bishop Octavio Cisneros, but his desire to maintain cross-cultural relations still stands firm.
Just the Hispanic presence anymore. We also have to think of other populations, other immigrations that have come here, and so we have to work towards that unification of all our communities. Coming from the various countries.
Retired Bishop Rene Valero. We're going to have much more on Hispanic heritage later in the show, and next Tuesday, Natalia will have more on how Hispanics have played such an important role in the church in Brooklyn.
Should be great, but for now, stay tuned. We have much more currents coming up. A definitive statement on abortion in the new health care bill? Well, that and the rest of the day's headlines straight ahead.
and a new frontier for Hispanics in America. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, parents rejoice. It's religious education where your kids don't have to sit still.
But first, let's take a look at the day's headlines. A specific ban on federal funding of abortion is part of the discussion among a gang of 6 senators meeting to discuss health care reform. North Dakota Democrat Kent Conrad says existing law would prohibit that funding, but he says those negotiating a new bill want to eliminate any doubt on the issue. And next week in Washington, the Pope's representative to the U.S., the Apostolic Nuncio, will hold a special dinner for Hispanic Heritage Month. And as we hear from H2O News, Washington isn't the only place where that culture's work in the church is being acknowledged.
The United States has more and more frequently a large number of Catholics with Hispanic background. It is a youthful population that has a deeply rooted faith. This is what the Camino a Emaús conference, organized by the American Bible Society and the Cushwa Center for the Study of American Catholicism, confirmed this past July. Mario Paredes, director of the American Bible Society's relations with the Catholic Church and the coordinator of this conference on the Word of God, explained the Latino dimension of Catholicism in the U.S. The beauty of Hispanic ministry in the United States has to do with the gospel values. The Hispanic ministry is to reach out to people whose lives center around solidarity, a people who have a great hope, a population that struggles to overcome huge material obstacles, such as poverty, lack of education, insufficient housing, the immigration problem, and the lack of documents that will legally recognize them as part of society. This is the type of problem that we have in our society, and the Hispanic people are certainly setting the standards of how to live the gospel.
Que tenemos en la sociedad y el pueblo hispano ciertamente está marcando una pauta de vivencia evangélica.
Mario Paredes stressed the good relations that the Pope's visit to the United States had.
El pueblo hispano y el pueblo latinoamericano tiene un gran amor.
The Hispanic people, the people of Latin America, have a great love for the person of the Holy Father and his ministry as the universal shepherd of the Church. During Pope Benedict XVI's visit to Washington and New York, the Hispanic community in the United States filled the stadium up halfway, both in Washington and at Yankee Stadium in New York. The love, the adherence to Peter's magisterium is very important in our Hispanic culture, and this has strengthened the faith of our people. The Holy Father, without a doubt, came to confirm us in our faith. He lifted our spirits, he encouraged us, and he gave a speech in Spanish, making clear that the Church in the United States is Hispanic as well.
Y nos dio un mensaje en español queriéndonos decir de que la Iglesia en los Estados Unidos también tiene un rostro hispano.
And be sure to check us out over the coming weeks as we will continue to look at the Hispanic culture and its faith.
Well, while Hispanics are a growing part of the Catholic population in the U.S., in Jerusalem, Christians are getting much smaller in number. The senior Catholic leader in the Middle East says over a 60-year period, Christians have declined from 10% of the population to just 2%. Patriarch Fuad Twal says the wall built by Israel around the West Bank is closing Christians off from sacred sites. Well, did Jesus preach there? Archaeologists say they've discovered the remains of 2,000-year-old synagogue along the Sea of Galilee at the place believed to be Mary Magdalene's birthplace. One archaeologist says it is possible that Jesus preached there, as the site was an important Jewish city during his time.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead. Coming up, too cool for school? Think again.
There's a fresh new vision, energy, expertise, experience that are coming to the fore we didn't have before.
Welcome back to Currents. It is the first full week of the new school year, and around parts of our area, it's also the first full week for new schools.
It is. There's been some consolidating and restructuring in the Brooklyn Diocese, all part of what the diocese calls preserving the vision.
And to learn more about that, I sat down with Brooklyn Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano. Bishop Caggiano, thank you so much for joining us again here on Currents. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my honor.
We're talking today about preserving the vision. Some people might be saying, well, what does that exactly mean? Why don't you tell us?
Preserving the vision is a multi-year strategic planning process we began this past year in order to reimagine Catholic education in our diocese. And I'm happy to report the first year, although it was a tremendous amount of work, we have begun to see real fruit come from it, which is very encouraging.
Well, very good. Now, exactly how is this working? How have we gone about sort of this process so far of changing the schools?
Well, last year basically was much about education, informing people, parents, parishioners, lay leaders, of what the challenges are that parochial schools face, right, and also to be able to give them a role in consultation to reimagine what would be possible. We did that, and also we presented a model of a two-tiered governance model that we want to introduce in all our elementary schools.
Okay.
The next 3 years is to implement it.
Right. Okay. Now, so that's what I was going to say is, where do we go from here? What exactly is the structure that you're talking about?
The two-tier governance model allows for the school to be an independent Catholic school, so it's no longer dependent upon the parish for financial assistance necessarily, governed by the pastors of the region, who are the top tier. They are the sponsors. And then a competent group of lay women and men who are its directors.
Gotcha.
And they basically take on the responsibility of running the school. And I must confess, we are giving birth to 7 academies this year from last year, with some of the most wonderful, competent, generous lay leaders who are directors that you ever want to meet.
Right. Tell me a little bit more about the process, about, I guess, last year's process as we've been moving forward in this, about getting the word out there. Have parents really been involved in this process?
To an extent, but they've also been very apprehensive, worried, right, and they've had many, many questions, because it is a new model. And it's like everything else new. Change is hard for people. My hope would be the academies being born now will be very successful. That will alleviate some of the anxieties that parents have had this past year, because those anxieties are really understandable.
Right. Well, now, as I talked to you last week, we were asking about the state of the diocese.
Oh, the diocese, yes.
So tell me a little bit right now about the state of the schools and kind of where we stand and why this is an important step to take now.
I would describe it as a time of promise and challenge. So challenge, the same factors that existed last year and have been building remain. The number of parents who can afford Catholic education are diminishing. And therefore the number of students enrolling continues to diminish, putting pressure on schools to remain viable. So that remains. But the promise is that because there are now individuals who have a responsible role in running these schools, who partner with principals and pastors, there's a fresh new vision, energy, expertise, experience that are coming to the fore we didn't have before. And they're coming up with some very creative and innovative programs. Right. So there's the promise.
Well, very good. So, okay, I have to ask you this. Why you? Why were you the one that was chosen to kind of lead this effort?
That's a very good question.
That's a $64,000 question. Right there.
Actually, we are blessed to have Dr. Tom Chedzuko as our superintendent, who has really done the lion's share of the work on preserving the vision. I'm the cheerleader. But when the Vicar of Education retired from his position and there was no replacement, then basically I came to the fore as Vicar General to assist Tom in allowing preserving the vision to go forward.
Right, right. Okay. Well, very good. Well, so how are we seeing this so far? You've talked a little bit about the parental response to it, maybe a little apprehension there. What about maybe the diocese as a whole, the leadership of the diocese? Is this going well so far, and where do we see it going from here?
Again, I think there's still a level of apprehension and question. It's healthy skepticism, I call it. And that's good, because it keeps the process honest. And I think even among the priests and among the leadership, parochial leadership, I think they're supportive, but they want to make sure that this is going to go forward in a direction they're comfortable. So this year is going to be the opportunity for really to win more and more people over to the process.
Right, and this is all just, I guess, an effort to kind of to right the ship, if you will.
Absolutely, and there is one addition which is interesting. For this coming year, unlike last year, we did it on a diocesan-wide basis, the discussion. Now we're doing it by region. And what we're going to do is lay all the facts before local leaders and ask them, what do they see as the vision in this particular region when it comes to the academies? So they'll have a really concrete role in the decision making.
Okay, well, very good. Now, of course, as we know, just have about a minute left here of time to spend with you, but as we know, there have been a lot of, you know, I guess staffing changes, name changes, you know, consolidation of schools, things like that. How will this preserving the vision effort help with that, do you think?
Well, to the extent that there is going to be continual change, it allows everyone, parents, teachers, principals, staff, a choice. Right. You're either in the process to help mold the product, or you choose not to be part of the process and inherit whatever's decided. So I think we're creating something new. Everyone has a place at the table, and I'm hoping everyone will come.
Very good. So for now, any more school closings?
No, my hope is that come this year, we will announce a new round of academy creations, which may have some consolidation, but that would be a decision every region's going to make. And I hope to have that discussion in about 10 regions of the diocese.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, thank you very much, Bishop Caggiano.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us again. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, that is Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano.
School closings, it's obviously, you know, tough. People don't want to have to talk about it, but it sounds like they're trying to make the best out of the situation.
Right, right. And you know, and as he said, kind of, you know, right the ship on this and go about it the right way, and that is have the parents involved in decision making. And as he said, you know, the parents can really choose to be a part of the process or not, and then they're kind of stuck with whatever is decided. So he's encouraging parents really to become involved in their children's education and really become invested in it on more than just a monetary basis.
Absolutely, because it's one of the things that they will have as their legacy, and you know, kids are you know, often very passionate about what school they go to.
Absolutely, I know that from experience. But we'll have more currents coming up straight ahead.
Coming up, education. Get your whole body into it.
The ultimate goal is to actually have a strong basis or foundation here in the church so we can actually open it up to the kids in the community.
Finally tonight, when you hear stories about kids in church, oftentimes it's really about trying to get them to sit still.
I know from my own experience as a child once in church.
A little terror.
Right, right. That was good. But at one Brooklyn church, they're actually doing just the opposite of trying to get kids to sit still. They're getting kids up and moving and more involved in the life of the church.
At Bible Faith Tabernacle in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, young people are learning step dancing and much more.
That's why I do this. Me and myself, I have 6 children. I raised 6 children in the church. And from the time that they were small, I noticed that there was a deficit in the community for families, especially low-income families. Sometimes we couldn't afford to send them to dance classes and to singing lessons. But you could always come to the church and find something new and exciting for the children to do, and still be creative and use a lot of different ways to keep them connected to stepping in faith.
Working with young people is a challenge. You know, being the youth minister of the church, you know, it's a challenge for young people because young people are very active. Young people, you know, sometimes wander, you know, but at the same time, just coordinating them and everything, trying to get them focused and all, because young people, you know, youth will be youth.
Well, you know, we use STEP to get them active and involved. Also, sometimes they incorporate scriptures into the STEP. Sometimes Christian music into the STEP.
Well, they teach us different things. Like, even when we mess up, they say, have faith in God, and different things like that.
We've been doing the STEP for on and off for a few years, and we don't want them just to come in and sit in the service with their parents, but we want them to feel a part of ministry. We want them to feel a part of the kingdom of God. So it's so important that we get them involved from as young as possible into adulthood.
It does, in fact, give you more of a reason to want to come back to church, especially Sundays, Tuesdays, Fridays, when we do, in fact, have step practice.
So to get someone to teach step has been very difficult, and we have had to stop the step team and start again, but we really have been trying to get people in the community more active. Like currently we have 2 students who have really volunteered to step, but they're going back to school in 2 weeks. So that's our challenge, trying to get people involved, trying to get people to volunteer.
I love working with kids, and I've been stepping for 12 years at my school, from junior high school to now, and it's something that I love to do. The ultimate goal is to actually have a strong basis or foundation here in the church so we can actually open it up to the kids in the community, so we can actually have a program to keep them active so they can stay out of trouble.
And we can sit here and step all day, but we learn so much stuff from it. We learn how to be a group. We learn how to work together. And I think that is what most young people these days need, and they need a church home.
When they think of church, they could think of something that's boring. My mom's making me do it. You know, my pastor says I have to come. But then when they get involved and they see that, you know what, this is something that's exciting and fun, and it's for me.
I love the sound of that. Step dancing at Bible Faith Tabernacle.
You gotta have rhythm and you have to have coordination as well.
That
I've
counts you out?
Well, no, I've got the rhythm. It's just not the coordination. I don't have the chord. As a musician, I mean, because I've been a musician for most of my life, and so I've got the rhythm thing down. It's just the coordination thing that's not.
You're a little too white.
It's
for
my
this
2
one.
left feet, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. But you know what I like about it is that they're using it as a way for kids to feel more connected to the church. Really. I mean, obviously, it's not a mass. She said sometimes they do scripture or whatever when they're stepping, but but that they feel motivated to get in the building and to be more connected with their faith that way, and that's great.
Absolutely, a fun way for kids to learn how to work together.
Yeah.
And in that faith-oriented setting is great.
And burn a few calories in the process.
That's right. It never hurt doing that. Well, that's it for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up tomorrow, young adults get away from it all to reconnect with their faith. That and more coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, remember, you can always catch us online. Check out our freshly minted website.
It's nice.
I know it. The breath of fresh air. Smells, it's got that new car smell on it.
Sure.
A brand new look and a brand new address is currentsny.net. You can still see all the clips of our show there. Check out our blog. It's called Riding the Wave. Again, the address, currentsny.net.
We are all over the internet. You can also check us out on Twitter. You can head over to twitter.com/currentsny to get the latest tweets on the show. And also, we have a new Facebook fan page, so you can friend us at Currents. Search for us, I should say, over on our Facebook page.
Right, do that.
Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.